Mary.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Happy Easter.
You as
You
well.
too.
So we'll give Glenn a couple of minutes if he's going to pop in, and if he doesn't, then we'll just go ahead and get going. One of the things that I want to do, if nobody has any objections to it, is actually flip the agenda. I want to try to get the other things out of the way so that when we start talking about the general bylaws, we aren't going to have to worry about going back and doing anything else. And then in subsequent meetings, I think I'll just flip it and list it that way. So we'll just bang them out. And that way, when we get to the discussion piece, we don't have to worry about anything else. Does anybody have any problems with that? Or
No objections here.
Whatever works. Yep.
I sent a late document over to everybody, a couple documents actually, around quarter of. So forgot to send them this morning. Nothing life-threatening there, but I don't know. I think it may make the process easier to keep track of it with the chapter review. But as I said in the email, I'm open to suggestions, modifications, changes. If somebody's got a better idea to go about this. All right, so let's go ahead and open the meeting at 6:02. And if Glenn comes along, we'll go ahead and let him in. Like I said, I want to flip the agenda. So the first thing I want to do is the approval of minutes. And Marshall sent those out to us this afternoon. Everybody get a chance to look at those?
If you like the last set, you'll love these.
Well, I have a tremendous amount of confidence in Marshall. And
Did everybody get a chance to get a look at them? Or do you want to hold off on them till next meeting?
I honestly have to tell you, I did not look at them. I looked at the first one, the 11th.
You want to just hold off till next meeting then?
25th, I did not. You just sent, I thought you sent them. You sent them again, a second time?
I don't think so.
Okay,
No, you just, the ones for March 25th.
okay, all right. My fault.
So you want to hold off on them?
Oh,
I mean, given that Glenn's not here, maybe so.
Okay,
yeah.
done. Move on. New business. So I sent you some information earlier in the week about the conversations I had with Templeton, Rentham, and Norwell. And those I thought were good conversations. The town clerks there were very forthcoming with information. So I thought it was very beneficial. I reached out to Carolyn Yetto at General Code today via email to see if she could give me some idea where they were. She was actually on vacation. She did respond back to me earlier this afternoon, though, that she thinks it's almost completed, but she is going to check and get back to me. Because what I basically said was we really need a date because we want to get it scheduled and move along. So wait to hear back from her. But she thinks it's almost complete. So whatever that's worth. Any questions, comments? Here comes Glenn. Hey, Glenn.
Hey, Bill, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. So we started, and what we did is we actually flipped the agenda. So we're going to pass over the approval of minutes until next week. So everybody has a chance to look at them. So
Okay.
we're talking about some new business now. And I was just bringing everybody up to speed on the conversations I had with the 3 town clerks. And I reached out to General Code today, and they're going to get back to me with where our proposal is and when we can expect it. So that's kind of the only thing that you missed.
Okay.
So any questions or comments about anything to do with the information I found out from the town clerks?
No.
Anybody else?
No,
Nope, not here.
Okay. All right. Hearing none, then I want to, next thing I have is I wanted to give you, I told you about the review forms I sent over. You can look at those when you get a chance. The last thing I wanted to talk about was I had a conversation with the town administrator today, and, you know, we've been shaking the trees a lot on grants and trying to come up with funding sources. So there are 2 applications that we've submitted, and I don't know if they've actually been awarded to us yet, but the indications are that they are going to be awarded to us. So I wouldn't book it yet, but they're pertinent to what we're doing. So the first one, actually, both of these are from the Executive Office of Administration and Finance. EAOF is the acronym for that. And this grant is for the costs associated with review and amendment of town zoning bylaws. The amendments would assist the town to encourage housing development. So in that grant is in the amount of $12,500. So if in fact we get awarded that, then the plan is that Brian would submit that or, you know, reach out to the awarding authority to see if what we're doing with the recodification, if that would meet the qualifications for that grant to help fund the process we're going through. So that's out there, and he seemed very positive about that. The second grant is to assist the town. Again, this is from EAOF. Assist the town for the review of land use and economic zoning regulations. The review will lead to identify priority areas for sustainable housing and economic development, as well as plan for future growth. And that grant is in the amount of $33,000. So Brian is going to reach out to them as well if we're successful. We don't know if that money could be potentially used for upgrading some of our GIS mapping or something along those lines. So yet to be determined exactly what we're going to be able to do with that. But just wanted to give you an update of some possible new money that we're going to get in the project. Any questions or comments about that?
I think that's great news, Bill. That's wonderful.
No, I do as well. If the first one at the 12,500, if that in fact is the case, then, you know, we may not have the need to budget within our operating budget, the funds to do this. Now, again, we're going to if we need to, but every $10,000 or $15,000 here or there helps the cause. So that's good news. So anyway, anybody else got any comments or questions about those 2 grants?
No.
Okay.
not me.
All right, perfect. Then the last thing is, I don't know if we have any public comment or not. I thought I saw Lorraine pop in, but I don't see her. Are you out there, Lorraine?
I am, yes. I
Okay.
was just the videos.
Do you have any public comment?
No, I do not. I'm just,
Okay,
and I'm
very
listening.
good. Then we'll make note of the fact that Lorraine is on the call. And then we'll move on to the general bylaw chapter review. So we talked about last week looking at the first 7 chapters of general bylaws. So let's jump into the deep end of the pool. And let's look at chapter 1. And did anybody come up with anything, any comments, suggestions as it relates to chapter 1 general provisions?
Well, I'm going to preempt all of that and say, how do you spell bylaw?
Well, we have it as BY-LAW.
I think that's old news,
Okay,
based on what I've reviewed online.
what's it supposed to be? No hyphen?
No hyphen.
Oh, hyphen, yeah.
All right.
I've never seen it with a hyphen. Well, I can't say never, but
Well, welcome to Ashburnham.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that was, okay, can I go now? No.
chapter 1. I had 3 things.
All right, go ahead.
One, I was wanting to know who, because the way it's written, it sounds like we have one law enforcement officer of the town, section 3. So definition of who is the enforcement officer. And I mean, it's like, talks about it for any violation, yet we have that conflicts with some of our rules, which specifically says in certain things, it's the building commissioner, and other things, it's something else. When I read that, it's like, that's needs definition was the first
That-
thing I thought.
I agree, that's the first thing that I noted as well. It needs to be defined. I mean, I think as far as the Conservation Commission is concerned, we can serve as law enforcement officers,
Right.
but it really should be defined no matter what.
Mhm. And then the second thing I had was, I hate seeing specific dollar figures put into bylaws, because that doesn't change, and it goes years and years and years. It says $100 fine, in section 4 for violation, when violation of some bylaws might be should be significantly more than that, and for others, maybe not. But I think I would just make note of and ask the sort of general question to everybody: do we want to put a specific fee amount in something called a bylaw?
Would we, I had that one highlighted as well. So would we be better served as a community to, much like we have a fee schedule that gets put together for various things? Would we be well served to do some sort of a fine schedule as a separate part of the bylaws, so that you could go in and amend the fee schedule without having to amend the bylaw?
And to me, I mean, if we can't trust the select board and the town administrators to recommend and then approve an annual fee schedule, then we're electing the wrong people and we've hired the wrong town administrator. I mean, so I feel like what we should be suggesting is that we should grant authority, the bylaw should grant authority of somebody of setting the fees. Maybe it has to be, recommended by the town administrator, and then to the advisory board, recommended to the advisory board, and approved by the Board of Selectmen. I'm just sort of throwing crap out there on the wall and see what sticks. But in other words, give authority to our town leadership to responsibly set those fees on those fee schedules and everything on an annual basis. And you might have to put limitations on that if all of a sudden you wanted to apply, let me give you an example, a $10,000 fee for, a violation of the scenic road bylaw, that might have to go to town meeting. But, if it's a modest change within, no fee can go up by so much in a given year, then I would say we should have bylaws. The bylaws should grant that authority to people. That's my opinion, but I don't know how others feel.
We all need to be careful of the fees, and the enabling state legislation, which allows for the imposition of fees. The Conservation Commission is limited by statute to $300.
Mm.
And if we want to impose additional fees, we have to have the police department issue a ticket to people. We have to have that ticket filed with Superior Court within a very short amount of time. And we have to obviously show up in court. You can't just go find, saying that'll be 10 grand, please.
Yeah, I know, I'm just, yeah.
No, but
I'm trying to give an
I'm
extraordinary
saying,
example.
because they, just like anything, whether you run a red light or, whatever, you are subject to due process. And that means Superior Court.
Mhm.
And so, we have, there's the regulations pursuant to, what is it, 24D or whatever it is, that dictates how one can issue or process fees. And I think before that whole thing needs to be reviewed.
So let me ask a question. We're, in my mind anyway, we're talking about two different things here. You've got a fee schedule, then you have a fine. And they're not interchangeable, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, all right. I just, because we're, right now, we're kind of interchanging the two, so.
Okay, no, I'm with you. No, the fee schedule is, you submit this, you want X dollars to cover the town's review.
Well, this is, for example, whoever violates any provision of these bylaws. So in other words, you find something here. Okay, let's just take section 1 of chapter 2. The town for years has been not having an annual meeting on the first Saturday in May at 10 o'clock in the morning. So the town has been violating this bylaw for how many years? Now, who does the town pay their $100 fee to?
I think the
Because
fine's
they're
definitely in order.
breaking this rule. That's
Right.
this is an absurd example, but it absolutely is valid here. That it's just an example of how awkward and clumsy these bylaws are.
Well, where are you reading that? Where is that?
I am reading that page 1 of the general bylaws of the town. Section 1.
And
What's the
what's
first?
What's the date of the one you're working with?
2014, I assume.
2010. November,
Okay.
revised 2010.
Well,
17.
therein lies part of our first problem, because there is a revised version dated August 20th, 2018,
Oh,
which
well,
is,
when
is
was
what
that
I'm-
voted on by the town?
and that's what I'm working off of. And I thought everybody had the same one, because in the section you reference, it actually has been changed because it got voted on to get changed.
Okay,
It's the first Tuesday in May at 7 PM.
okay, all right.
I mean, just for, but that, so
This was
does
given to
everybody
me.
have,
This was given to me when I came on the planning board. They gave me a book of all the bylaws, and that's the one I've been working off of.
The 2018 version is online.
Yeah, I
Okay.
should have looked online, but
right, well, but actually, I think it's a great point, because that's part of the difficulties that we have. Everybody's working, generally in town, you don't even know if you have the right document. So when you're trying to, act on these things or enforce them or do whatever it is, we're not even 100% sure that we've got the right thing in play, so.
So what is the date of what date is the document that you have, Bill, that we should?
I have, it's August 20th, 2018.
That's what's online.
I have October 29th, 2013, and that was sent to me via an email. So, yeah, we need to.
so we have, all three of us
We have
have been
three
reading
different
3
documents.
different bylaws for this meeting.
Yeah. So, okay.
So, that was bad of me for not checking online to see that I had the most.
Well, I thought, it could be bad of me as well, Walt, because I thought I sent everybody the right information. I thought I sent an email with, but maybe I didn't, or I could have, and I could have sent the wrong attachment, because I've Well, matter of fact, up until probably 6 weeks ago, I didn't have the right one either because I was having a discussion with the town administrator and I referenced a specific section in a bylaw. And it actually was about capital planning. And he wrote back to me and said, no, that was changed 3 years ago. And I said, well, where the hell is that? And
Yeah.
that's when I got. the deal.
And doesn't it have to go before, if it was changed 3 years ago, we voted on it in town meeting 3 years ago?
Yeah, it was voted on.
All right.
Anyway, so your point is still very valid though about, if in fact that were the situation, who do you find? And, the town certainly isn't.
Yeah,
going to do that.
and goes back to what Marshall pointed out. Okay, I chose one that says, okay, you're gonna find the town if they don't have it on the first Tuesday, of May. But if you find another one of these and it's the town administrator who makes the mistake, is the town administrator gonna have to pay $100 fine? We
Yeah.
all know that's not gonna happen. So, I mean,
Well, but the next sentence basically says, notwithstanding the foregoing, the selectmen may, in their finite wisdom, vote to designate any other date in April or May. So, I mean,
yeah, that's true.
so it doesn't have to be on the first Tuesday.
Well, that isn't in my,
Oh,
bylaws.
no, but
The one I was reading.
The point is still valid. The specific one that you cited may not be in play, but I think it's still a valid point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, I'm always, whenever I see a bylaw that is sort of a general rule and they start putting in specific fees, specific amounts, it's just, it's just likely to become a problem.
Okay,
well, just by example, in the wetlands bylaw, which is a general bylaw, we have a schedule of fees which pertain to applications, but we also have reference to, enforcement orders, which are violations,
Mhm.
where we identify what that penalty is. So,
and Marshall, in that scenario, you have discretion over what the fine could be, or is it
No.
or is it specified?
no. I mean, we could change the fine to 300 or 100, but we can't exceed 300.
Okay,
Well, I'll just give you said you're looking at your bylaws for 2018.
Yeah.
I just went online, and the one that comes up online is the one that Glenn's looking at, October 29th, 2013. 2013.
Yeah, and I just pulled up the email Donna has sent out, and the correct one is in her email. For the general bylaws, it's August 20th, 2018. So that's correct, right, Bill?
Mhm.
yes,
Yeah,
August. But the zoning bylaw that she sent in the same email is May 6, 2014 for the zoning. Is the zoning bylaw, is that 2014? Is that the copy we should have?
I believe it is.
Okay.
it
Right.
is. Yeah.
Except for a few things like signs and marijuana that have not yet been incorporated into that 2014 version.
Yeah, I think what I did, I was proactive. I went online, went to the town website and grabbed the October 23rd, 2013. That's what's on the.
And
the
if
website.
anybody else in town was looking for the bylaws, that's what they would have gotten. They would
Alright.
not have gotten this 2018 one because it's not on the website.
So could we just, based on this, can we go to the office, Bill, and just say, hey, we need to update that?
Yeah, no,
Yes.
I'll take care of that. Interestingly enough, at Monday night selectmen's meeting, we're going to hear the final report from the website review committee. And
Oh, okay.
we've had on our task list, we've had for months now, people that are responsible for certain areas of the website, their department, if you will, to go in and make sure that all the information is in place as it's supposed to be. And I'd be willing to bet you most people haven't done anything with it. So
Yeah.
I will make sure that we get that corrected.
Okay.
Does anybody have anything else on chapter 1 that they identified as something that needs attention?
Oh, specifically, other than bylaws are supposed to review every 5 years and so I guess,
Yeah, obviously the selectmen should have,
2018, something was done.
yeah, we should have fined the selectmen for that.
That's right. Fine them $100.
Yeah.
Now we have to say each.
So I just have one comment, Bill, based on what Walt's saying, there are three things. What's the risk of changing? And, by the way, I assume for these fines or for these fines, you put a note, go see the fee schedule. So we risk that someone doesn't go do that, they miss that, I guess that's their fault. Also, by doing this, does legal counsel need to review something like this, or can we make that decision? Or
Oh, no, honestly, Glenn, we can't make any decisions.
Okay, all right.
So
Good.
basically what we're doing is we're reviewing them. I'm taking some notes here. We're just going to go through, and at the end of the day, we're going to make a recommendation or multiple recommendations back to the Board of Selectmen that we think you should take these actions.
Yeah.
And, depending on what happens, if we engage with the outside company, whoever it is, any of these changes have to go through legal counsel review. So
Yeah.
there's a lengthy process. So we're not going to be taking any votes on any of this stuff. It's just,
So-
again, I stand to be corrected on almost
Yeah.
all this stuff, but I
That's
think,
why we're here.
the way we'll work through it is just, we'll go through, we'll get feedback from everybody, we'll make the notes on it, and we'll just start compiling that stuff and just work through the process that way.
So one of the questions I would have before we make that change, have other towns done this? Is that the format that I'd be curious, only because this seems pretty drastic to pull that fine out. I'm in the real estate construction world that, I send someone to the town hall and they look at this and, it says go to the fee schedule, and just what we just found out. The fee schedule could be October 2013, you know what I mean? So now the risk is who's updating that, the same thing. So good, I guess you could have a good meeting with the town, with the selectmen as far as, updating the websites and stuff. So
Well,
this seems more work, right, Walt? I mean, now you got to worry about the fees, though.
well, I mean, as long as again, let's don't combine fee schedule with fines.
We're fine. So.
And this is a fine for violation of the bylaws. Maybe a better thing to do would be a fine not to exceed X amount of money that is voted on is determined by the Board of Selectmen or something like that, or determined by something to simplify it and get a number out of there.
Yeah.
Or a number that has, and that gives them a reasonable range that would be permitted by state statute or whatever.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay. Well, again, if we have this we really do a 5-year review,
Yep.
people are going to review that. I hope, obviously, they would review the fee and fine schedules, once a year. But, if we really get into this at every 5 years, then we're not going to miss things. It won't be a big, financial, it's only $100. Oh, I don't care if I put that, I don't care if I select that. It's 5 years, so make it 500, then people react to that. Anyway, so I'll stop there. So there are some holes in this, but I'd be curious if other towns would follow that same format. Well, just
Yeah.
and if they've been successful, or is it an issue? So
Yeah, I think that's a good question to ask.
okay.
We will make note of that.
Yeah, we have our two banner towns, right? We're looking at Norwell and Templeton. Why not just go on their sites and see? Oh, yeah, they have a fine schedule. It'd be interesting if that's there, and if it's not, there's a call to them to go. Why don't you have it? So
Well, one of the things in talking with the 3 town clerks that I spoke with, and I certainly suspected it, as you probably did, and I know with some work I've done on previous bylaws, everybody's borrowing from everybody else. You're going into a similar community and looking at what they're doing. And I know when I was doing the work on the sign bylaw, it's amazing. It's verbatim when you look at these different towns and what the language is in there. And obviously it's perfectly fine to do that because, whatever that bylaw is, it's gone through legal counsel for that town. It's gone through the Attorney General's office. So obviously you still have to go through that process, but I think it gives you much greater odds that what you're doing is going to be successful in making it through the process.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, let's jump on to chapter 2, town meetings. Any comments, questions, suggestions as it relates to chapter 2?
Well, just to kick things off, the outline that I had prepared called for combining chapters 2 and 3. 3 being government or governance, as I called it, of town meetings, because it's all town meeting. Well, I don't know why
Yeah.
we can't. Now, I haven't gone through and say to do that, but
Right.
I think the bottom line is they, in my opinion, should be consolidated.
And to support that notion, one of my things that I highlighted was in section 2, the last sentence. Special town meetings may be held as provided by the general bylaws. So I just said, oh, okay. So where in the general bylaws are we discussing what special meetings are? And
I think what that really means is not the general bylaws, but the Massachusetts general laws,
see,
which is
well,
one of
right,
which is one of my comments. We refer to general laws, but I think in that particular instance, we're talking to Massachusetts general laws.
yeah, and it doesn't say that.
It
So
doesn't.
what I did is I went and I said, okay, where would it be covered in our general bylaws? How do you, what constitutes a special meeting? How do you set it up? What are the rules for setting it up? And so I went down and I looked at the government of town meetings
Yeah.
section, read that whole section, nothing in there about special meetings.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, who would know what you just said?
Yeah, no, I think, I really do think it's Massachusetts general laws in both instances, and we need to find the pertinent reference so that it can be so stated.
Yep.
Well, where was that in chapter 2?
Section
Section
2.
2 of chapter 2.
And
It's
where
the-
last
there's
sentence.
federal laws?
Well, it's the first and second sentence, both sentences. There
I
are
see it,
reference to
yeah.
general laws, which I believe are Massachusetts general laws,
Okay.
MGL.
And then the last sentence says special town meetings may be held as provided by the general laws, which
Yeah.
I'm now educated may mean the Massachusetts general laws, but
Exactly.
it doesn't say that. And suppose it doesn't say that, then it you would assume that it's in these general bylaws or whatever.
Yeah, great
Or
point.
you-
I'm going to, well, a couple things. One, section 3 talks about posting the notice. There's no reference to posting it online, my town government or whatever the municipal vehicle is on the web. So that needs to be, section 3 needs to be expanded to include, an electronic notification.
Yeah, like the website or that. I mean, I wrote that same thing down. Shall we
Yeah.
specify more modern modes of communication in the
Right,
bylaw?
right. Yeah, we should. And then, hang on just a minute. Oh yeah, I'll get to that in a second. The last sentence of section 4. Advisory committee shall be presented orally and writing at such special town meetings and whenever practicable shall be released for publication by the news service. What is that?
Where is that, Marshall? Where are you now?
The last line of section 4 of chapter 2.
Okay.
And the
Yeah.
thing that I asked about, and since you're in the same section, it says to start that section 4, it says the advisor shall report in writing its recommendations at each of the annual town meetings. Now, has the advisory board been reporting in writing?
Well,
Well,
they've been, they've
Go
been, they've been stating, recommend yes.
Well, they say that orally, but it hasn't been in writing. Oh, here's what I'm getting at. Let's give them all each $100 fine. Because they
Actually,
you get the message.
it may be, it may have, I'm not sure what document gets passed out of town meeting now, but I thought it was posted in there because it has selectmen, capital planning,
Yeah, okay.
advisory. I thought it was published, but
Okay.
it's a great question.
I think it is. And so when people
And if
go
it is,
in,
it's fine. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's just, is it in, if it's going to be in writing, there needs to be a real clear protocol for it really being in writing. That's all I'm saying.
I think when people go into town meeting, they can read the warrant and they'll see what the recommendations of Board of
Yeah.
Selectmen, Advisory Committee.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a written dialogue of why we do this. It's just a why or an N.
Well, don't they not just ask this advisory board, but the select board have to give recommendations to it.
Yeah.
We don't say the select board in this section here. You know, it's just one of those things about cleaning it up, but it's not that, you know, it's not that horrible. I'm just sort of making a general comment there.
Well, and the other thing too is if we're going to all the trouble to do this, we need to root out everything we can. If we're not sure, we need to ask.
Mhm.
And if it makes sense to change it. I mean, one of the things that's been, I'm sure it's in here somewhere, on our task list is I think it's been talked about for a couple of years, would be to change it from select board or from
Mhm.
select men to select board.
Mhm.
So that's probably going to appear as a warrant article this year. So
Okay.
if it does, then you have to go into these documents and you have to make all those changes in there. So the timing of that makes perfect sense, that
Yeah.
if that's a decision that's made, it can be incorporated. So all the changes be updated at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it's same thing. I circled just, you know, jumping ahead in chapter 3, you know, where we talk about, it's the moderator. And it says he shall. Well, I said he / she, you know, it's like, it's just like the board. Those kinds of changes, you know, in this day and age, we probably need to make.
Yeah, no, true.
All right. So
Um,
anything else on chapter 2 that anybody has?
Well, again, what was your thoughts regarding news service at the end of section 4?
I highlighted it. I actually get a little bit of a kick out of, you know, whenever practical or practicable.
Is this like teletype in the old days?
Yeah, I don't know. So I've got it highlighted. And I've got a note made to it to question that sentence.
Okay, all right, that's good enough.
All right, then if I don't hear anything else on 2, let's go to chapter 3. And obviously I made note of combining the 2 as you'd referenced, Marshall, but let's go through 3 as it's separate right now. Anybody got anything?
The only thing other than, you know, whatever it takes to integrate 3 into 2 is there's a reference in section 9 shall be governed, you know, these bylaws shall be governed by, quote, town meeting time, a handbook of parliamentary law by blah, blah, blah. That was first published in 1962, per my review. It was updated in 84, and I believe the most current version, which you too can get for $27, is dated 2001. So I think we need to make sure that the title and the authors are correct. We need to insert the date and then say, you know, as may be revised or something like that.
Okay.
And I don't even know whether, does the town have a copy? Does Brian have a copy of that?
I wouldn't bet any money on that.
I didn't think so.
I know Keith has one, and I know, well, it doesn't always happen, but I know it's been referenced before in opening comments about, you know, if there's any questions, that's what we follow. But, you know, like, are we following the 2001 or the 1962 or, you know, whatever? So,
Well,
okay.
hence my comment.
No, that's a good one.
On section 3, the only thing and I may need you all to educate me on this, but look at section 10. And it says, it's one line, it says, on matters requiring a 2/3 vote by statute, a count need not be taken. Well, how do you know you have 2/3 if you don't take a count? I don't quite get that. What does that mean?
Well, historically, it's been the moderator's discretion. And you can, however, call for a vote if somebody thinks that, it's too close and the moderator shouldn't have.
Oh,
ruled
okay,
in
so
that
it's just referring to the moderator doesn't have to take need not be taken if he thinks 2/3 was clearly vocalized.
Correct.
That's all it's saying, all right.
But
Well,
there
it sort
are,
of says that it's sort of a repeat of what.
Yeah.
is
yeah,
said
but
up
there are provisions to challenge it though at the meeting.
Where?
I don't know. I've seen them, but
I
don't
mean,
ask me.
that's just my point. It's, I'm not trying to be, I'm just sort of, okay, if there's.
Well,
provisions
in the
where it says that.
1962 version of town meeting times, it's
Exactly.
on
That's
page
just,
254.
yeah, it's just what I was gonna say. Yep. Yep.
I mean, actually, quite frankly, I think the provisions to challenge it are probably in section 9, because it's probably in the parliamentary law I haven't looked at that book in 30 years.
I think that law is about speeding things up at the town meetings. And when
Yeah.
it's obvious, when it's yay and it's obvious that it's more than 2/3, then he has that option. And then anybody there can challenge that and ask for a vote.
And in
So-
my mind, on that bylaw, since that was, approved by the AG in 97, I just would have put a tail on the end of that sentence that says need not be taken unless, unless challenged using, parliamentary procedure law, blah, 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 something that sort of corrects that, but that's a minor one, but we're
Okay.
being sticklers now just to try
Well,
to get this thing better.
Okay, I've made a note.
All right, anything else on chapter 3? All right, hearing or seeing none, let's go to 4, appointive town committees and boards.
Again, I just changed the title. I don't know where appointive came from, but per the outline that I generated, it was appointed officials. Trying to, because somewhere along there's a category called elected officials. So therefore it should be consistent verbiage. So anyway, other than the name change, I didn't have anything else.
This one, I had one thought, and I'd be perfectly okay if everybody just said, forget it, Walt, but I hate it when it says in section 3, board is absent, when anyone appointed to an appointive committee or board is absent repeatedly. I hate words like repeatedly when there's no definition to what does repeatedly mean, by whose judgment is repeatedly. It just, it brings up discretion, and that's really when you can get in trouble. I know what repeatedly means to me may be different than what repeatedly means to you.
Yeah.
And that's a subjective word in that situation. And I would think there may be an opportunity to clarify what that is.
That's because otherwise you're going to get whomever you're talking about complaining, well, that's not repeatedly.
Yeah, and someone, oh, this person never shows up,
Right.
and we've all been in that. And then you go for months and somebody's not showing up very often, and other committee members are pissed off.
Right.
But one person doesn't want to make a move to make a change, and, you get into trouble, and
Yeah, the other thing that's, because we've all experienced it, the other thing that's troubling with that for me is that, so somebody misses a bunch of meetings, then they finally show up and they have the expectation that you're gonna go back and bring them up to speed on everything
Yeah.
and waste all your time in the meeting while,
Yeah.
no, I know when, I can't remember what committee it was. I think it was economic development, when I was working on putting that together. I put specific language in there that said, you missed 3 meetings, then it doesn't say you will, it says you can. I mean, everybody misses meetings. Most cases, somebody will shoot you an email and say, hey, I can't make it tonight. Nobody
right.
cares.
Yeah.
But when you don't show up for weeks on end or meeting after meeting after meeting. So I'd like to see that specifically addressed with something definitive as well.
And I mean, you can always say this, and, this is what the border is, and then it goes to, whoever established the committee to decide what the circumstances were or whatever.
Yeah, the appointing authority, right.
Yeah, appointing authority. And I just have to say to you, Bill, I laughed at section 5. And I laughed only because it said, if no report is made within a year of its appointment, a committee shall be discharged. And so I could think of all of the differences, all the committees that we don't even have minutes posted for those committees, let alone they've written a report. And why haven't they been discharged?
Interesting.
So I just had to laugh, that's all.
Well, I have that whole section 5 highlighted for that very same reason, because I looked at that and I said, oh, really? Yeah, how does that work? So. Interesting.
And I know the first thing that Marshall's going to say in chapter 5.
So we're good with 4? Everybody good with 4?
I'm good.
I
with
agree with Walt that language needs to be at least addressed in some way.
Yep, I've got it highlighted, so we'll take a look at that. Then let's jump on to 5, capital budgeting.
Yeah. Why are we numbering this one differently than everything else is sections, and this is 5.1, 5.2, 5.3?
Yeah, I mean, that's,
that was my prediction, Marshall.
yeah,
You
yeah,
would say that
no,
first.
you're right. I mean, it's, well, just because. Okay. Numbering.
The other thing in 5.1, isn't there a conflict there? It says, the Board of Selection will establish, appoint a committee known as blah, 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 composed of members of the Select Board, 2 members of the Advisory Board, 1 member of the Planning Board, the town treasurer / collector, and 2 citizens at large. And then it says the town accountant, town / collector, and the town administrator shall be ex officio. So the town collector is either on the board or ex officio. What is the town / you see what I'm saying? Say, in one hand, it says the treasurer collector is on
Yes.
the board. In the
Yes.
next sentence, it says the treasurer collector is ex officio.
Yes,
So what is it?
I got it.
I wrote that.
Sorry.
You're
That's
either one
okay.
or the other, right?
I'm gonna blame Westminster because I stole most of it from them, so. I can tell you in 5.2, or it looks like 52 on mine, but it's 5.2. I have submitted a warrant article to change that, and specifically 2 things. The $15,000 value, it's been recommended that we up that to $25,000. And then the next sentence, the following items shall be excluded from the capital plan. That was done by our illustrious previous town administrator. And in my humble opinion, nothing should be exempted from the capital plan. it needs to be reviewed by capital and go through the same process and procedure as everybody else does. So I'm hopefully going to get a warrant article approved that says that would remove that sentence. So,
Yeah, here, yeah. I didn't have all that much, figuring that you were on top of this one, Bill, because you're so interested in capital planning, but
well,
I did find it interesting comparing the first section of the capital plan chapter with the advisory committee, where it points out how the advisory committee, hold on a second. No, never mind. There's something I'm looking for. There's a sentence that says, hold on. Oh, in the section 2 of the advisory committee, it says the said committee shall choose its own officers, shall serve without pay, and shall cause to be kept true records of its proceedings. They say that in the advisory committee section, but we don't say it in the capital planning. So I don't know if it's an issue or not, but I just look for consistency. And so we say the last sentence of section 6 says, shall serve without pay and shall cause to be kept a true record of its proceedings. So we put that on the advisory committee, but we don't put it on the capital committee.
so Walt, I'm a little bit slow on the update here.
Okay.
In the advisory committee? Is that what
Looking
you're
at advisory committee, last sentence in section 2.
Oh, sorry.
Got it.
So I'm sort of asking a general question. Is there a reason why that's important? The simple answer might be strike it from the advisory committee might be
Right.
the easier way to solve that. Or maybe there's a reason why.
Well, because as is the case with all of these public meetings, you're required to have minutes.
Yep.
Vote on them and post them. I would think that would be the true record of its proceedings, but
Yep.
that's a given. You have to do that. It's not an option for you.
But this says shall choose its own officers. The officers will serve without pay. Doesn't the capital planning budgeting committee do the same thing? Choose
I
its
think
own officers and serve without pay? Of course,
yeah,
some of the officers happen to be, well, the ex officio members are members of the town, but the rest of the officers are all serving without, well, select board members get pay, so.
right, but part of with advisory, you can't be serving on any other board or commission or anything like that.
Oh, okay.
So you
Okay.
can't, so you're specifically excluded from that. You can serve, like Rosemarie does on economic development, and we and me on this committee. So
Yeah.
you can be on other things that way, but in advisory can too. But that's a specific thing there. But
Okay.
I'll highlight it, and in most committees, unless it's specifically designated by the Board of Selectmen, if they're the appointing authority, or the town administrator, if he's the appointing authority, do in fact select their officers,
Yeah.
chairman, vice chairman, whatever, usually secretary. So that's not uncommon.
Well, this was the case where the moderator is the one who chooses who assigns this advisory committee board.
Correct.
You know what the history behind that is? Why?
I don't. Well, the advisory committee is supposed to be kind of like an outside auditor, if you will, supposed to be an independent body outside any other offices and things like that, put together by the moderator to, in the advisory committee has the authority to review anything. They can even go so far as to retain outside counsel if they need to, under a previous town administrator who will go nameless, not the most recent one. I got into a thing with the town administrator where, he was threatening us with something. And I told him that look, here's what it says, here's the law. I don't have to check with you on anything. If we want to go out and get outside counsel, then we have every
Mhm.
legitimate reason to do that.
Mhm,
And then he folded his tent after that because
mhm.
you have that authority to do it. I don't know how you pay for it, because that's another thing, but you have the capacity to do it, so. But I
Okay.
don't know the origins of that. I know in the Association of Town Finance Committees handbook, it's specifically spelled out that way as well. I don't know if there's some reference to Mass General Law that established that or not.
Okay.
I know that a few years ago, Bill, we had, the zoning board had got a memo from the then town administrator saying that if we wanted to talk to town council, we had to okay it with him first. And I always assumed it was a money thing. That, like you say, if we were to call town council, who's gonna pay for it? He wanted to make sure that it was, that the bill was staying in control.
Right, and generally speaking, that's correct, because, I think the planning board probably uses town council more than any other board or commission because of the nature of what they're doing, and maybe Concom is up there as well. I don't really know. I don't look at the breakdown on those bills, but it's to provide some semblance of control for that very reason. But again, with the advisory, because they're like an independent authority, the rules are different for them to be able to do that, so. All right, so anything else on, let's go back, excuse me, on 4, other than the things that I referenced there in capital budgeting? Everybody's okay with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I am.
On 6, we have on the advisory committee, we have the reference, last line is section 2. I've got that highlighted and questioned. Does anybody have anything else about advisory?
In that same section, I'm wondering why we still need to keep in there the paraphrase that is at the end of the first sentence. Except that the following final adjournment of the town meeting in 2004, the monitor shall appoint 2 persons for, why is that sentence still in there? See where it's talking about the
I do, yeah.
annual town meeting of 2004? What relevance does that have to now 2020? And why would we keep it in the bylaws when it doesn't appear to be necessary to me?
Well, there must have been a warrant article in 2004 that,
It
So
allowed
mandated.
them to do something different. They ended up putting it in the bylaws through perpetuity for, I guess,
Well, you know what it-
2004 wanted to be remembered forever. I
No,
don't
you know what I think, it is?
Yeah.
Because if you look at the first sentence, when it looks like it's when they're first establishing the advisory committee, you're gonna appoint, people to a 3-year term. And then after 2004, it goes to staggered terms. So they're appointing a couple people, for different lengths of terms, 2 for 1, 2 for 2, 3
So
for
I guess
3.
I would say that whole sentence just can be rewritten to be what it is we want it to be going forward, which is what it is now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we may not have to figure out how you got there, but this is the way it is. Okay.
I'm gonna say this one because it's just a typo, but it's a typo that was in 2010, just like it was in 2013, and it's not chapter 11, section 4. In section 4, last few words, it says chapter 11, section 4, it's chapter 2. Roman numeral 2, section 4. Because if you go to chapter
Oh, yeah.
11, section 4, you're into something that's completely different.
Okay, got it.
That would have been caught by an editor, I'm sure,
Okay, anything else on advisory?
There's a couple of his, who may at his, section 3 has, I'm sure someone's gonna do a spell grammar search, word search, and, do he,
Yep.
his, and those and replace those, but just a note if you're highlighting.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Yep. That's all I got.
All right. We're at the 7 o'clock hour. Do you want to finish up chapter 7, or do you want to call it?
Chapter 7's pretty quick, I would think.
Yeah, I'd like to wrap it up. We may go a couple minutes over, but I'll give everybody the option because we said we were going to try to keep them in an hour.
I'm good with that.
Everybody okay if we proceed?
Yep, I am.
I'll talk about this
And
with
7 contracts by town officers.
The big thing that I came up is that in section 3, this is a long sentence, and I just want to make sure it's the same sentence in the 2000, and it says no contract involving an obligation of the town in excess of $10,000 shall be binding unless it is in writing and signed by the town accountant, whose signature shall indicate that funds are duly appropriated and available to pay for the contract, and by the town administrator and by the majority of the select board or the board or committee duly authorized to control over that appropriation. You know, and I know, if that's the way it's supposed to be, that means that the Board of Selectmen should be voting on every contract that's over $10,000. And you know, and I know, Bill, that hasn't been happening.
No, correct.
And
So-
so is and supposed to be or not? That's my question. I can make an argument both ways, but that's my question. And maybe that's the way it's supposed to be, and we need to call that out to the town administrator. But we know under a previous town administrator that turned out to be a big problem because that was not happening.
So, Walt, in the 2018 version, the first sentence has no contract involving an obligation of the town in excess of $1,000.
Right. Go to the
Okay,
second contract.
No, but when you read it, you said 10,000 on the first one. I just wanted to make sure that
No,
it
I was
was in fact
talking about the
1,000.
second sentence.
Okay, all right,
The
got it.
second
Yep.
sentence is no contract involving an obligation in excess of $10,000.
Right,
And that requires that, all I'm saying is that says the Board of Selectmen need to be voting on every contract over $10,000.
yeah, and I just wonder if that's consistent with the town charter as it relates to the town administrator's
Right.
position.
I'm just raising it to highlight it as something that needs to be looked at, nothing more.
Okay, got it.
Understood.
Well, I mean, it's true, and it gets at, back at my issue with the whole municipal vulnerability preparedness program, which, was over $20,000, and the select board had no clue that we had even had a contract with Par Corporation to do that. So
That's a good example. That's a good example. I
And that
remember
was my question, is who is the contracting authority in the town?
It's the town administrator.
And you have
Yeah.
said that before. And so
He's
I
He's
just think, go ahead.
he's the chief procurement officer for the town,
okay,
as one of his roles.
okay. Anyway, that was indeed a mega problem where, the rules weren't followed and it caused some sort of mayhem.
But I think the same thing you're talking about sort of comes up in the section 5 of this same thing, where it says, it's because I underlined it as town meeting, vote of the town. So it's like no board, committee, or officer shall make any contract on behalf of the town, the execution of which shall necessarily extend beyond 1 year from the date thereof, except as otherwise provided by town, unless specific authority to do so is given by vote of the town. Which means that if you guys want to enter, if the town wants to enter in something over a year that could extend, like they could have a 3-year IT contract or something like that, that has to be voted at town meeting. I'm just raising the question. If it does, it does, but that's what that's sounding, because when it says vote of the town, I'm assuming that means vote of the town at a town meeting. And
I think that's it. I think that's correct. That's what
and
it
that
is.
needs to be, that probably needs to be just at town meeting, or, at the annual town meeting, or at a special or annual town meeting or something like that.
Right.
I thought, I was surprised. I don't have any criticism of it other than the fact that I was surprised to read section 7 in this
Well,
chapter.
yeah, I actually have that whole thing highlighted because I haven't looked into it, but I believe under Doug Briggs, we put a short-term and long-term program into place to eliminate this whole thing. So, because what was happening is that people would accrue the sick time and then they'd leave and you'd have these big payouts. And there were no financial provisions, setting the money aside or anything like that. And you'd have these payouts that, where's the money going to come from? So I've got that highlighted, to check into that, because I always stand to be corrected, but I think that's in conflict with what we did with that disability program.
Yeah, and I guess I'd raise the other thing. It's incredibly detailed, but it's also missing a lot of stuff. It's like you're really getting very specific about days and accruals or whatever else. And it's like, if you're going to get into that much detail about what your policy is, it just struck me as odd to read it in.
Well, the other, and again, I don't know, why is it there versus being in the personnel bylaw?
That's right. Yeah, it's a good point. That's exactly right. I mean, you should have quite an expansive list of personnel handbook. There should be a personnel handbook of some kind, that's approved by the Board of Selectmen, and all of that. And it should be in that, shouldn't be here in a bylaw. I think it's a good point.
74.
Yeah, I agree, Walt. I think that's in the wrong place as well.
Well, and if you look on page 74, chapter whatever is on personnel, general bylaw, which is, multiple pages long. So there's a lot more, there's a lot of stuff in there.
That's all I had for these sections, for this.
This is Glenn. I don't have any other comments.
Okay, then I gotta highlight, I've already got that highlighted. So, okay. So then the only other thing that I would like to bring up is I thought about our assignment for the next go round, and I thought we'd do the next 4: records and reports, legal affairs, junk and secondhand dealers, and use of public ways. I wanted to avoid going into new construction, because when we get there, I want to reach out to the building inspector, the building commissioner, and kind of have her look at it. Maybe she can join us to provide some insight into what's going on there. Does that sound like a plan?
Yeah, I mean, for the record, I've been copying her on the meeting minutes, so.
Good, yeah, no, and she may in fact be watching these after the fact, because I know she's got a scheduling problem, but
Yeah.
we'll reach out to her. So, okay, then we'll do the next 4 chapters for the next go round. And hopefully between now and then, I'll get some feedback. I'll get the proposal from the other vendor and see where we are with that. So,
Mhm.
okay,
Cool.
so unless anybody
Excuse
has
me.
anything else.
The other vendor?
No, I meant, well, we have a proposal from Lorraine. So
Oh, okay.
that's, that's one vendor.
Meaning
And then-
meaning general code.
General code is the other
Okay.
vendor, so.
Okay, got it.
So we will have multiple proposals. So,
Understood.
Okay, then would somebody offer up a motion to adjourn at 7:12?
I will do so.
All right, it's been moved and I'll second it to make it easy. And I'll do a roll call vote. Dave Perry?
Yes.
Okay, Marshall,
Yes.
Walt,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
and Bill is yes. So 5-0, motion to adjourn. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. Have a good
great-
evening.
Have a great night. Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye,
You guys
everybody.
have a happy holiday.
Yep.
Yeah, you as well.
You too.
Thanks.
Happy holiday. Happy
Got
Easter.
it.